I'm Anthony Fio, and you're listening to the Talk Carby to Me podcast.
Yo,
Yo,
yo. I feel like that's just always our intro.
yeah. You gotta cut. I don't know. I prefer to just pick up like wherever random conversation is being had and just start it off. Obviously, this is the Talk Carby to Me podcast. I'm Anthony. I'm joined as always by Sandra Gameler.
Oh, we're so formal today.
A little bit. I'm actually wearing a suit and tie for this. Combed my hair for the first
I
time in
actually blew
months.
I blew up my hair today, which is the first time in a very long time for me. I'm showered, I'm dressed, I have makeup on. It's crazy. It's a crazy day today.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
I left my makeup in the car, so I'm coming
I can
through.
tell. No, I'm kidding.
I'm coming through like I just woke up, just with my body wash that does 75 things that women have 85 products for. I get it in one bottle of Old Spice.
It's funny? So my husband, he wanted conditioner, okay, like for his hair because he's growing it out a little bit. So we went to Target and we went to like the male, I don't know, the male product area, for shampoo and stuff. There's not like male conditioner. Like it's always like a two for like 2 in 1, 3 in 1, or whatever. There's not like it's really hard to find just a bottle of conditioner for men. So we had to buy a female conditioner. Not that it matters.
Well, I mean, you always have for us, we get like 7 in 1. We get like 14 in 1. Like you can wash your balls with it, your hair, you can use it to clean out your ears. It's also going to function as a little bit of grease to make the door stop squeaking.
They say that the 2 in 1, I can't speak for the 7 in 1, but the 2 in 1 is supposed to dry your hair out.
Yeah, hair care is a big thing. I've explained my hair care routine to a lot of folks.
You have a
And
routine?
yeah, you think this just naturally looks like, well, it kind of does naturally now to this point, but
What's your
uh
routine?
well, I wash my hair about once, maybe twice a week, but it's usually once a week. So I'll give it like a super super thorough rinse, but that's why my hair always looks natural, a little wavy, stuff like that. It never really gets dried out. Certain weather conditions can mess with that. But if you look at like hair care for women, like what do you do? That's why dry shampoo exists and stuff like that. And you have the hair looks bad by their opinion, not mine. And how do I get my hair to look like yours? We'll stop washing it or don't wash it for like 2 weeks and things of that nature. So
Interesting.
very, very, very a lot of details. But yeah, men don't have a lot of there's not too many cosmetic products for us. Like maybe is it just that you guys are more susceptible to buying things you don't need?
Look, we need to stay young looking as long as possible. I think women just constantly have this like fear of looking old because I don't know, like I guess we are in our quote unquote our prime when we're young, right? And the minute we get like some wrinkles, like that's it, we're over the hill. You know, I think that's like what we subconsciously think. So we need all the products in the world to maybe prevent that from happening. Versus men don't really have that problem.
Some of us don't. I think the aging topic is very fascinating, especially what you see happening in society. So I don't know how I ended up down this rabbit hole, but apparently one of the most common or trending plastic surgery procedures that the masses are going to is a removal of buccal fat.
Buckle fat.
So apparently, buccal fat is the fat that sits in your cheek,
Oh.
and typically, as you age, it goes away. Which is why you see people as an older person is generally their face is going to be a little more sunken in because that's gone away. So apparently, it's what people are doing now, and they have it removed from their cheek, and it gives them like that, almost like that sunken in face. Obviously, it's going to accentuate your cheekbones, uh, but it's technically something that the natural occurrence of this is in an old person. However, young people do it cosmetically, do cosmetic surgery to give themselves more of a distinguished look, maybe give their face a little bit more structure. So it's very ironic that to look
Wow.
better as a young person, you need to make yourself look older, but we don't want to age or wrinkle or things like that.
Yeah. Remember there's also like that trend of having like gray hair?
Yeah.
I mean, that was like a super wild trend too, where like most women like like they see like one gray hair and they run to get their hair dyed. And like that was a trendy thing. It looked cool though. I'm not gonna lie, it did look good on some people.
Yeah, I recently got a haircut. I actually went a long time. Sometimes I like to let my hair grow out, just let it flow in the wind. But my barber started cutting my hair, and he was like, "Oh shit, you got gray hairs coming in." And I was like, "Hey, take it easy."
Whoa. I started noticing a few too, and I started panicking. I'm like, oh my God, is this time? It's time that I start dyeing my hair.
I will never dye my hair. I will wear the silver fox look like a badge of honor.
Yeah, I feel like men can get away with that more. Like I think like mature looking men, like that's definitely more of an attractive thing than like a gray haired woman, I would say.
Yeah, unless it's like a streak. Like I know a couple people that have just like one gray strip in their hair, and they
Oh,
kind
that's
of
fair.
look makes them kind of look. Maybe that's a Storm from X-Men kind of thing, though in the cartoon. She's got that gray streak in it because she's controls the weather and she shoots lightning bolts and shit. Um,
Interesting.
but I think it looks pretty. It's pretty cool looking.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see how my little gray hair streak develops. If it's just one strand, I can do that. But if it's more, we got a problem.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, if you were someone who had issues with hair, like how often is that? Can that be diet related, or how often is it diet related, or can it be improved through diet?
Oh, like gray hair, you mean?
Well, let's say gray hair, hair quality. Say your hair's thinning, it's falling out. Like, are there things that you can do nutritionally to kind of like work in, add in?
Well, hair I find like really complicated. A lot of people start using biotin to help with their hair. But from the research I've done, biotin really isn't like the best supplement to be taking for hair growth. Really, it's collagen. Collagen's amazing for hair. Making sure you're having enough protein is actually really, really great for hair. But I would also check your thyroid hormones and see what's going on there, especially if your hair starts thinning. I would see like is you maybe have like a thyroid issue going on. And I would check all of your thyroid hormones, like your TSH, your T3, T4, your reverse. I would check them all. Then if that is still fine too, I would probably do like a micronutrient panel. It's from SpectraCell, and I would see like do you have like any vitamin deficiencies, which could also be leading to a hair loss phase. Graying, I don't know enough about graying to be honest. I'll probably just dye your hair. But for thinning or like loss, I would definitely look into like why that's happening. Yeah.
Let's get those vitamins in.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know, it's very interesting because my husband's right now going through a phase of also losing more of his hair. And I'm like, are you taking your vitamin D? Because he can't like his blood panel came back like low in vitamin D, and that can also be a thing, and I'm constantly after him. But he doesn't listen to his wife, but he'll listen to the doctor. It's
That's
okay.
why you got to text them from like a Google Voice number, pretending to be the office and with just recommendations. Like, hey, this is from Doctor So and So. I'm his assistant. Here's what he said you should start taking.
Dude, I mean, maybe I should, or maybe I should reach out to like Andrew Huberman, and maybe he does like a cameo or something for him.
Yeah, pay him.
Because Andrew Huberman is God in our household.
Yeah,
Whatever he says goes.
sounds about right.
Yeah.
So have you seen that new trend on TikTok and pretty much all social media with the girls setting up tripods to catch guys checking them out as they're working out?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a silly trend as someone who spends a lot of time used to work in a gym. Like, I get it. There definitely are like those creepers that stare at girls, but for the most part, everyone is just looking as you're waiting your rest time. Like, people just look. I look. I look at women too. Especially look at women when they're working out because I'm interested to see like, are you like a bad bitch? Are we gonna be like lifting heavy? Are we doing like cool shit? Or are you like, like, ooh, 5 pound bicep curls, Like I'm trying to figure out what kind of a person you are. Or is your little outfit like is it all just for show?
Yeah, I I hate it. I hate it. I hate it so much as a guy. So I've worked in gyms uh, in the Northeast. I work gyms in the South. I follow a lot of trainers. I'm friends with a lot of gym trainers. I'm friends with influencers and stuff like that. It's so cringe. Like, just if you think about, so like I give you my perspective as like a guy being
I
in a
love
gym,
it.
right? So when I was at the huge gym that I worked at, there was fucking attractive people every single day. Like at any point in the day, you could go find someone attractive, whether they were just a really pretty person, whether they had an amazing body. There was something going on the entire time. So you get desensitized to it,
Mm. Yeah,
especially, and even if you like say you're someone who goes to the gym like 2 to 3 hours a day, like it doesn't have like the same trigger as opposed to like if you're at your supermarket and a model walks by. It stands out that much more. So a lot of times, like I would just like you said, what is this person doing and things like are they having a great workout? Is this good programming? Are they going to mess up the squat? Are they about to die in this? And honestly, like sometimes I'll stare, and the reason I'm staring is to find answer that question. And I hate to put this out there and just be so direct about it, but I'm going to. Like sometimes some of these girls work out like dumpster fires. If you're driving down the highway and you see a car crash, you're gonna look at the car crash.
yeah,
And especially for me as a trainer, my lens is a little different. It's like, oh, that looks fucked up. Or it's like,
yeah.
oh, your back must be killing you. And and for me, like when I meet someone or I look at someone and maybe it's just a side effect of the job, I look at them, I look at their gait, I look at their walking patterns, I look how they move. And in my brain, it's just science, like, oh, your skeleton is fucked up. Like you could have a great ass, you could have a great body, but all I'm seeing is your skeleton has super tight hip flexors, or you have a really bad pelvic tilt, or your hamstrings are weak, or there's an
Yeah,
instability somewhere here, and things like that. And it's like you look at like society and how that plays out, and obviously there are creeps out there, which like is the unfortunate aspect of. I would say being a female, I couldn't relate to people just constantly checking me out, but I think when you look at social media and what people post and what gains popularity and what gains traction, like a lot of the videos that you post out there, they start from the perspective of your butthole. And then you go into some random, leg exercise. And it's like, well, if you want to show someone how to do a good RDL, the camera angle's from the side. It's not like looking into your ass crack.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And you're almost like putting up a train wreck, trying to get attention to then make that person that just happened to glance for a second because there's nothing else to do in the gym sometimes when you're waiting between exercises, like you said. You're like, oh shit, I just caught and looked. And now you're like, oh my God, like now you're just blasted everywhere. Oh my God, this guy's a creep. This like maybe he was concerned for you. Like sometimes, sure, maybe he's a creep. Other times it could be the fact that you're wearing neon highlighter leggings that give you a wedgie. That might just saying that might be why. You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, there's been many times where I've just zoned out, like after like lifting or like after a specific set, and I'm just happen to be staring at someone by accident. But I'm like not even cognizantly watching that person. I'm just zoned out, like in my thoughts or whatever, processing my last set. And I think that happens just in general to a lot of people, but like also to your point, a lot of these women like they wear like these very skimpy outfits to go to the gym, like the little shorts and the little sports bra. And I mean, I'm not saying like they deserve to be like hit on or steered. I'm definitely not saying any of that, but like it happens. Like you look. Like I'm not gonna look at the person that's like full on and like big like baggy t-shirt and like sweatpants. Like I'm, bad trainers and on the elliptical machine. I'm not gonna be staring at that person necessarily if they're not in my eyesight. But if you're right in front of me in a little skimpy outfit, like yeah, honestly, I will like even as a straight female, I will look because I am curious on what you're doing. And does your workout warrant this outfit?
Yeah. I and Yeah, and the skimpiness, like for me, whatever, like you're gonna go wear stuff. It's capitalism at its finest. I think it's very obvious if you look at human history.
Yeah,
The way you make something appealing is you make it sexy.
yeah,
And you look at all the brands, Gymshark, Alpha Elite, anyone, like they make, I guess, what would be considered relatively sexy gym clothes. And girls like to look nice, so by all means, it's their prerogative. Go for it.
yeah,
It's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate that like you're trying to like just get this random dude to just like check you out and then complain about it.
Yeah, and then humiliate him, right? So like now like you're in this like not like now you have your tripod set up, like you're purposefully fishing. You know, you
Yes.
got your bait laid out and you're
I did come across one video where this girl was doing back squats. She was doing great squats, but she got stuck at the bottom
Mm,
and no one would help her get out. Like she was
that's
like looking
awful.
she was like looking around. Yeah, well, because they don't want to like get caught like because she had a tripod out and she didn't want to like, oh my
Oh,
God, this guy was creeping on me or this guy was checking me out and stuff like that. And for some folks, there are people that record themselves and they record themselves like we've done it. Every trainer that I know in history does it. A lot of times it's like, hey, this is the work that I'm doing or I'm getting after it. And like you like to see your friends, your trainer, your clients posting stuff to get the stuff that they're kind of like their workout in. It gives you a measure of progress. It kind of gives you like that good feeling like, oh, this person's doing that. I'm
yeah.
doing this too. And we're all kind of making progress. We're all getting stronger and stuff like that. It's a good way to keep up with people, keep in touch with what they've got going on. But but like in those situations like that, like if you do get stuck on something and you need help, if everyone's just has now this aversion that was created by some dumbasses where it's like, I'm not going to go near you. You're going to make me look like a creep. Like you're recording me.
Yeah. I mean, I think like, if you're like a bad bitch, in a cute outfit and you're gonna go in and lift heavy and like I am all for it. Like wear your cute little skimpy outfit, go like really show off, show out like what kind of cool workout you have planned. Like I think that's super cool and I actually find that really empowering and very impressive. And as someone who goes to the gym and like, yeah, I like to wear cute workout outfits too. Are they necessarily little shorts? Not necessarily. I like my leggings, but I do like to look nice when I go work out because it's like a confidence thing for me. And I do work out in a certain way that not most women do. And I think that I people do look and I don't really care because that's just I don't know. It doesn't even phase me to be honest. I'm not even bothered by it. I'm not even phased by it. But I have encountered like actual creepers, that start working out because like I would work out very consistent at the same time, the same days, and that started having people that started working out around me and kind of like basically drooling, watching what I'm doing. And I honestly didn't really care up until they started approaching me, started talking to me, and they started saying like really uncomfortable shit to me. That's like those are the creepers you need to find. But they're not going to be the person that's going to be staring at you with your tripod necessarily, right? That one time. Like these people take time to develop these creepers. The true creepers, it's a long-term game to find them.
Yeah. I had a client one time, a very attractive woman. And I was working out with her and I was like, wow, I feel like everyone is like watching us work out. Like I was training her. And but like midway through the session, I'm like, is this what it's like to be you? Like everyone just stares at you constantly, like everywhere, at every single. She's like, yeah, like, I'm like, yeah, that's unfortunate. That's annoying. But yeah, once you get approached and you like, I've heard stories obviously from my clients like, oh yeah, this guy was talking to me and stuff like that, and he was being a little creepy.
Yeah.
Um, but
I mean, I had somebody like I'll never forget this. It was at the big gym that we worked at, and I was hip thrusting. I was in my zone, and I like to wear a baseball cap when I'm in my zone too, because especially if I'm working out by myself, I feel like it blocks my vision from people. And this guy comes up and just starts talking to me about the hip thrusts and blah blah blah, and I'm like trying to be nice because I work there, right? So I didn't want to be a total bitch. And then he asked me something, and I said, "Oh, my husband." He's like, "Oh, I didn't see your ring." And he basically scattered off like really quickly thereafter. Um, but I don't know why I'm sharing that story. But it's just like things like that that are just annoying, right? And so I feel for the girls that it happens to them on a regular basis, and it is annoying. But you almost have to just be more rude to these people when they do approach you, and people are just going to keep looking at the gym. Also, at the same time, like I do the same thing for men, by the way. I think like we're kind of having this like the target right now is like women being watched, but men are also being watched. I mean, how many times have we gone to the gym? We've seen like these little high school kids that are working out, and we're like, oh my God, these kids cannot possibly lift that. And we literally stop what we're doing and we are watching them like a full on audience to see like what they're doing.
yeah, I've experienced it. I've had a couple people just follow me around the gym.
Yeah.
Um, when I work out in a busy gym, I usually have headphones in, and I hate everyone. Everyone equally, I hate. Because it's just the mode and the mindset
Yeah.
that I'm in, and I don't really want to talk to you. I don't really want to hear how your day's going. I don't really care if you're good looking. I don't care if you're like you have some great story to tell me. Honestly, I do not care. Friend, someone else, anything. Don't care. After my workout, we could talk till the cows come home about anything that you'd like. You have my full attention. During my workout, I'm kind of hoping that magically, like a dragon breaks in through the roof and just scoops you up and takes you off into like the depths of hell.
Yeah.
Um, and I've had people like, just follow me around. I've had people ask me for spots, and then they like females ask me for spots, and then they're doing the exercise just fine. They did not need me at all. And they're just like banging it out. I'm like, are you like showing off? Like, what the fuck? I'd be like, if I was like, hey, can you spot me on, benching 135? And I just do like 45 reps in your face. And I was like, what? I was like, what?
I mean, there are
Um,
women that go to the gym in their little skimpy outfits, and they are trying to find someone.
sure. It's a great place.
Yeah. I've seen it happen many a times. They go to these like high-end gyms and they really try to meet someone that, might be wealthy, etc. And I feel like, we're hurting their playing field with this trend. These
Right.
women can't pick up their rich, like future husbands.
Yeah, it is already bad enough like walking up to someone and being like, "Hey, how's it going? I'm Anthony.
Right.
What are you up to?"
Yeah.
And it's like it must be leg day. How do you know that? Were you looking at my ads? It's like, what? Like, no, like you're in a squat rack, so I figured you're
Yeah. I
so
mean, also too, just to this is kind of like on the same wavelength of our conversation. Like, remember like when you first started off as a trainer and then like you were instructed to go like talk to like people while they were working out. Did you ever go through anything like that when you first started working as a
so,
trainer?
so I so that for me was nothing. That's the easiest shit of all time. I'm very direct. I
Hate
don't care
that.
about your feelings. I wasn't in like dating relationship mode. And I worked in retail all the time. So like my job was to walk around a retail store, talk to people. Hey, how's it going? What are you looking for? What are your questions? And then start conversation like that. So that came kind of naturally to me. But they would be like, yeah, you need to go talk and meet people and stuff like that. And
I
um,
hated approaching people when they were working out because I hated when people talk to me when I work out.
mhm.
But maybe that's more of like against that female thing, right? I'm like, what does this person want from me? Like, why are you talking to me?
Yeah, I mean the pro tip there is just find a way to disarm the person. So if you
Mm,
see someone who always wears flashy shoes, walk by them, hey, nice shoes, and just keep it moving, keep it casual, and then slowly over time, you
yeah,
kind of ease in that conversation. I think that's really like gaining influence with anyone, really. So like when you think about like you and your husband, like he didn't walk up to you and say, let's get married. Like there were like 45 conversations, probably 700 conversations that happened
it took us
before
6 years. So
before that was even a consideration that there could possibly be a relationship there. And I'm using a dating example, but
yeah, that's true. I mean, eventually I did figure it out, right? Like I used your strategy exactly what you said. But if you went by the scripts, right? There was a script.
yeah, if you go by the script, like, hey, what are you doing? That's not right. Let me show you this new exercise. It's not
Yeah,
even fully related there. And then, well, I mean, if you follow that script, it's let me show you something that there's no fucking way that you would know how to do because it's too challenging for even me to do. And haha, training and
you forgot to ask them for permission to show them something.
yeah, permission. The consent.
So ridiculous.
Yeah, the a lot. Sometimes, I mean, I never really minded going up to people and be like, hey, so what you doing? And they're like, oh, I'm doing this deadlifts or squats or something. Like, what do you think you're doing? And
Yeah,
like
but you
I've
also like you had like a person you would approach though. I feel like you had it very dialed in for a very specific demographic.
my I did have a very specific demographic at Lifetime.
Yes, you did. No
Uh,
shade, it worked. I'm not saying like, look.
and I wouldn't target the demographic. It's just that just happens to be but one happens to be the demographic. So for those of you listening, the demographic tends to be females age 30 to 60. Those happen to be the people that spend money on personal trading. Those are usually the people that need the most help. Those are the clients that listen the best. Those are the people who are most of the time friendliest.
Yeah. It depends, but yeah. I mean, yeah, honestly, like that's a very nice demographic of people to work with, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, one of it too is like if you're working out and you're about to like fuck yourself up, I'm gonna go help you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of times for me, it wasn't like creating those relationships. It wasn't really about like, hey, I want to get you as a client because I never really asked many people on the floor like, hey, become my client. It was mostly like, hey, I'd prefer to not have you die. Let me teach you how to do this correctly,
Mm,
and then teach them how to do it correctly and go on about your day, and it goes from there. But it is a very strange thing, and we talked about this last episode where you look at the social skills that they change and
yeah.
stuff like that. And there were a lot of times where, I mean, I remember I did an interview for a kid that was 10 years younger than me. We were kind of doing through a practical, and I was like, okay, so you want to be a trainer? Let's go find someone and introduce yourself to them. And that was one of the most awkward interactions I've ever been a part of. Thankfully, I knew the person. He did not know that I knew the person, but
That's awful.
the strange it was one of the wildest things to see. And I'm just like, have you never spoken to another human? Like, forget a female. Like, have you ever spoken to another human at all?
Yeah.
And that ability to communicate just was like not really there. So it's definitely it's definitely a learned skill, and I think the script is super weird as well. Like,
Oh, it was the worst script, to be honest.
yeah,
Like, it basically it fostered awkward conversations. It encouraged awkward conversations.
yeah. I mean, a lot of times, I mean, how I looked at stuff like that whenever we got like a script or we had a play to run. If I'm doing better, if I'm doing my job better than if I'm exceeding expectations, I don't have to listen to you.
Yeah.
I've always kind of been like that in pretty much every job that I've had. If I'm under, then obviously something's missing, and I'll certainly seek guidance and learn what I can and try to improve and better myself. And but if I'm doing it well and at an above average rate, I'm the instructor now.
I've always felt that, like, if you just be yourself, people are very receptive to that.
Yeah,
Just
but
be real.
yeah, I feel like there's going to be a lot of people staring at the floor though from now on.
Oh,
A
probably.
lot of guys staring at the floor. Like, I'm not looking at your camera.
Yeah.
I don't notice it, so I walk into a lot of people's camera shots, and I'm like, my bad." But my first thought is you weren't doing anything effective anyway. Like, I just did you a favor.
Um, it's interesting because, like, now we definitely, like, see more of these cameras of people, like, being filmed and stuff like that or filming themselves, and I instinctively am always like, "Oh my god, like, this person," like, I instinctively, like, kinda, like, wanna mock it, but then I do it myself. And I always wonder, I'm like, "Do people think that about me if I think that about other people?"
I don't really like I don't really like hate it. I don't hate when other people do it. I just personally don't like to do it. But also, like, you've seen how I train. My training model and methods and stuff like that, they're a little simplistic, but
Yeah,
just
nothing wrong with people.
done to a level of perfect execution over and over and again, progressively overloading them. So like for my workout at the beginning for week 1, it's going to look pretty similar to my workout in week 12. And
Yeah,
so it's like, imagine if I were to do that and just like I post every single workout, like you're probably going to see me do the same thing a lot.
yeah,
So I try to stay away from it. If I do post something, it's like, hey, this was my workout today, but I'd have a lot of the same workouts. The only difference would be the weights, which it really doesn't translate over, over social media and stuff like that. So I don't really mind other people doing it. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of it.
yeah. I mean, I think also though to your point of like simplistic workouts, like I feel like the boring, simple workouts are like your most effective training programs. And similar actually is the same with nutrition too, right? Like so simple, boring, like nutrition is usually the most effective nutrition plan versus like all these fancy things that people try to do. And all the fancy things are just like clickbait, really.
Yeah, there's tons of clickbait.
Yeah, lots of clickbait.
So you had sent me that article about the academy, right?
Yeah, speaking of clickbaits,
These are your
Academy
mentors,
of Nutrition and Dietetics.
your council of elders, if you will, for you died URDs.
That is exactly how it is. For those that do not know, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, they are the ones that can accredit you to be a registered dietitian. They oversee everything RDs do and what it takes to become an RD. So they literally are God in the
Are
diet.
they so are they a part of the government, or are they like their, or would that be like a university kind of almost equivalent?
I feel like I should know the answer to that. Um,
Well, the fact
um,
that you don't tells me that they're not.
so basically they accredit university programs so basically if you want to be a dietitian, right, you have to get like your bachelor's, and you have to get your master's on top of that in nutrition, and then you have to go get internship experience but that's supervised by a dietitian to be able to sit for the board exam, and all of that is overseen by the academy.
Okay, so they're like a council, I guess, like a high council.
Yeah, yeah. Now, do they belong to the government? I'm not quite certain, to be honest. I know you have to keep up your accreditation, or your licensure, with the academy, and then your licensure in the state as well that you're residing in or deciding or planning to do business in. So, it's very blended.
Gotcha. So after like accrediting dietitians and stuff like that, like what role do they function in? Like what, like do they set out like, hey, this is sound nutritional advice. This is like the common accepted tongue when it comes to weight loss or weight gain or anything like that.
I mean, they set out the guidelines for nutrition. So they are the ones that are responsible for saying like this is what is considered healthy, this is a healthy eating plan. They very much influence the public's eating habits, um,
So I
and
just
they
looked it up
help
here.
shape the nutrition, food policies. Yeah.
They're a trade association, so they are not.
Oh, interesting. I just know I answered to them.
Can they like come after you, like put you in like RD jail?
I don't think it put you in art. I mean, they can definitely strip you of things, right? Like you can't. Well, as a dietitian, you already have a lot of like legal rights to things, but yeah, you definitely do answer to them, and you can lose your RD license if you don't keep up with your credits.
Mm,
Yes,
interesting.
yes. Every 5 years, you have to renew your you either have to submit enough credits, or you have to sit for the exam again, and the exam is very hard, very hard. Most people fail. I didn't, but most people fail their first time.
Yeah, I've got a couple friends that have talked about the process of going through and becoming an RD or a CNS, and it's like, oh, that's so stressful. It's
Yeah.
like it sounds painful to me.
Yeah, and mainly because, like, it's the exam itself is so hard because it covers so many broad topics, and they will find the most minute detail of each subject and ask you about it. So that's probably what makes it the most challenging is, like, there's so many things that you have to know, and there's so many specifics that you have to know, and they will find the smallest of specifics. You have to know all of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this article came out by the Washington Post, and I feel like it was super interesting because I think you sent it to me initially on Instagram of people posting about it. And then I started seeing it trend around a little bit, but the dust has settled a little bit on it. Um, but it was basically throwing shade at the academy, um, linking up with different organizations that promote like junk food and stuff like that, right? So kind of giving an example, let me scroll down in this article here real quick. Like giving an example of like they accept funds from like Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Hershey, Nestle, like Slim Jim. They get financial support from the Sugar Association, the corn refineries, the National Dairy Council, all those things. And I remember reading or hearing people's comments of like how outraged they are of these connections. And I kind of found that interesting because for me as someone that went through the process, like there's so many obvious connections to it. And they're not even secretive, or they don't even hide the fact that they have these connections with these companies, councils, organizations. It's very transparent, actually. So I don't know. I found it interesting. What were your thoughts like when you read it?
I think it's par for the course, and That's why I asked you if they have government oversight, like if the government oversees them, because it fits the bill. It's honestly not that surprising when you look at anything historically, as far as like any kind of changes, guidelines. We look at healthcare, nutrition. If you follow the money, it usually ends with one of the six major food brands. It'll usually end with one of the four or five pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
I think it's good to shed light. I'm glad that someone actually put out an article about it, right? So when you look at, you have this, call it this high council that advises the government on what to recommend to Americans on how to eat, how to be healthy, because health is important,
Mm.
right? So the government's gonna give us our all your advice. From 2011 to 2017, their biggest contributions came from let's see, you got
Dairy.
Conagra, which owns Slim Jim, Duncan Hines, Ready Whip, Chef Boyardee. They gave them about 1.4 million. You got PepsiCo with a 500,000, Coca-Cola with another 500,000. You got Hershey with 400,000 about, and Nestle over 200,000. The sugar, the sugar industry is basically funding the academy that tells you not to consume sugar in excess.
Yes. I mean, that's honestly like because it's also intertwined within what you're learning, right? Like it's in textbooks and stuff like that. A lot of things where you're like, okay, that can't possibly, like, I can't believe that's possibly part of the rules, right? For instance, the dairy council situation, like if you look at the my plate that the government puts out, right? They say it's important to have a glass of milk. I forget how many to have. If you look at what Harvard puts out, Harvard also has a my plate version, but they extract the milk and it's just make sure you have water, right? So they eliminate the milk necessity of it. And that's kind of where the research is going to. Like the importance of dairy in your everyday diet isn't as high as we used to think, right? But it's very much intertwined in the Academy of Dietetics and Nutrition and what they boast of or what they profess, right? And you can see a lot of these things in it too. Like when you talk to a dietitian and about, is for them it's important to include like a small degree of like processed foods, like making sure you have orange juice in the morning for breakfast, right? There's like added sugar usually in orange juice, like making sure you have some toast and all of that, but that's like refined grains, right? It's like processed food again because it's usually again sugar again in bread, and depending on your quality of bread, it's usually the lower end of quality of bread that we choose. It's not great for you. So I think um sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
That's okay.
But you basically just see how it's all intertwined, and as someone who's very health conscious, you sit there and you're like, this can't possibly, like, this can't be possibly what we're promoting here, right? And so like you have to know it for the exam, and then once you go out and you're a dietitian in the community, you just make different decisions than for you and your clients, to be honest.
It's the reality of it. I mean, that's my view of the all the training manuals and textbooks and stuff like that. Like, I don't follow any of the principles that are in the NASM certified personal training thing at all because they're wrong. They're just flat out wrong. I mean, I'll go out there and say it. And when we talk about the ChatGPT workouts, and we'll kind of get into that. But
Yeah.
I think the other foul thing is it's one thing to have contributors and sponsors, and obviously when you look at the companies that I just rattled off, they do make some products that you could have a sort of healthy lifestyle off. Like, so I'm a big advocate for Coke Zero. All right, Coca-Cola makes Coke Zero, right? They make protein shakes. They've got some products there that can be beneficial, but it looks bad when that organization is doing that. That would be like the equivalent of the American Lung Cancer Society taking donations from Marlboro.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. um
And
mhm.
furthermore, which also looks bad, is they actually invested money in Pepsi. Like they were profiting off Pepsi sales and revenue, which makes their share price go up.
Which one
Uh,
was?
the Academy,
Oh, oh,
the
oh.
Academy of Dietetics, they bought shares of these companies as well, so they were getting money from them. They were also heavily invested in them. So when you, like, for those of you that don't invest, when you invest in a company, you want that company to do well. For Pepsi to do well, you know what they have to sell? Pepsi. You know, have you look just look at the nutrition label on a can of Pepsi. Look at it on a can of Coke. It's not great.
Yeah. I mean, I will also say, like, so as much as like, I mean, I think as a dietitian or as someone that goes through this kind of level of training, like, you just have to look at it and be like, okay, I see how it's intertwined. At the same time, it's not like anyone else is going to come in and fund, the academy, right? Like, who else is going to come in and fund that much money? The government isn't. So,
You probably get Amazon too, Whole Foods.
okay, that's fair. Maybe them, right? But at the same time, I have to say, like, as much as like, yeah, it sucks these companies, like, it's like a conflict of interest there. They do spit out a lot of great stuff though for you in terms of like science, handouts, and all of that. Like they do put really great informational packets together that we utilize with our clients, that we utilize for training, that are actually helpful and good. So it's like this weird balance of good and bad within it. My dog's losing his mind right now. It's like crazy around here. The baby, the dog, my husband, me. I mean, it's like Wild West over here.
You want to keep them barking or
I think he's done.
okay,
He's a temporary barker.
cool. I'll edit that last couple things out. The other interesting thing about that article that you sent me was that I'll just read the quote from it, right? So the records indicate that the Academy acknowledged that certain levels of financial support gave contributors more influence. Companies that paid air quotes sponsorship fees were given quotes specific rights and benefits. Meanwhile, donors, grantors, and supporters were defined as those who made a charitable contribution with no expectation of commercial return. So having records, so you're promoting a healthy lifestyle, whole foods, less processed foods. However, all these companies that make just about everything they make is processed, which we know to be fact that it's not healthy for you, especially when it's an ultra processed food. They get certain considerations, like they get certain influence. Like it's literally like they can influence, they can alter the decision making product, right? So let's say, and this is a stretch. Now, I'm not saying this happened, but let's say they find like having X amount of sugar gives you cancer, period.
Mm,
They go, this will look bad for us. You can't say that, right? That's what influence is. You
yeah.
don't, you don't, you'll just not talk about it. You know what I mean? And that's the danger of having something like that, where a relationship like that exists, because you won't come out and formally condemn them because they're paying everyone at your organization, which is a big problem.
Yeah. I think there's like this weird tug of war that happens where it's like we know the importance of like basically eating whole foods, but then we have all of this like processed food in our culture and our environment. And there's like a tug of war of happening with that you have to make part of this processed food okay to have for the normal person, right? Like you have to like make it okay even though you want to be professing all this whole food stuff. That's why you see a lot of like dietary manuals and stuff like that. A lot of these dietary manuals on how to eat healthy or eat for heart disease and eat for that. It includes like things like margarine in there. Where like margarine is like that's like fake shit. Like have butter for goodness sakes. Like I think we've evolved to say like have butter instead over margarine, right? But if you look at these diet manuals, they're almost in a way antiquated and they very much fall in line with these sponsorships. And a lot of dietitians too, you hear them profess about having this healthy relationship with food and like finding a balance. And a lot of them say it's okay to include processed food in your life on a regular basis. I don't, not one of those people.
Yeah. I think for civilization to continue, you need processed foods. That just is what it is. The world function on a solely
Yeah.
a sole whole food kind of spectrum, we would die. We'd have a world hunger epidemic like no other. You need things that are processed. It was necessary for civilization to advance. However, there's a huge difference between something that's lightly processed, right? So dish that doesn't die on you as fast, as opposed to some of the things that you see. I think a great example is the Beyond Meat or the fake meat industry, right? Let's look at Beyond Meat, Impossible Burger, stuff like that. go, it's vegan, it must be healthy. Look at the nutrition label on that thing. It's longer than chapters in the last book that I read. Like it's insane the amount of things, and you can't pronounce half the shit that's on those labels. Does it taste good? Yeah, it's all right.
Never had it.
Yeah, I mean, you're not missing much.
Right.
It's one of those things where it's like, at what cost is this healthier than red meat, which historically has been villainized or vilified, but now we know not to be the case.
Well, I think also the question is like, should the academy be then focused on professing guidelines that are for survival of humanity or for humanity to thrive? Because I feel like those are two very different things. Like if we are talking about survival of the human being, yeah, processed food. Like we all need processed food. We need processed food to keep surviving in this quantity of that we have, quantity of humans that are on this planet. But if we're talking about thriving, like they're not going to thrive on like cereal and like potato chips and stuff like that. So I think those are almost two different conversations.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at, I mean, essentially for survival, I mean, both of our jobs are not needed.
No.
Um, yeah, right. So if you got rid of every personal trainer on the planet, be all right.
Yeah.
You know, everyone might walk a little funnier, but you'd figure it out.
Yeah.
Same thing with, dietitians, nutrition coaches, your fucking shaman, whatever you want to, whoever you want to go to for your guidance and things like that. It's one of those things where it just like leaves a bad taste in your mouth when you look at everything else, the way everything else is handled from all these big organizations. I mean, it goes to following that money trail, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But look at a lot of things that happen specifically in the last, 3, 4 years.
Mm.
What think of the advice that's put out, think of anything that happens, follow the where the money comes from. And you'll have a pretty clear answer most of the time on, do these organizations actually give a shit about you? And the answer oftentimes is no.
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, also too, I will say to kind of like put a little ribbon on this, like I think that the that as much as like these companies like for what they stand, the products that they promote isn't great, they do at the same time, they do provide a lot of value still through research of various they do provide good research overall to the industry, and they do provide great handouts and great informational stuff and lectures and so they do good as well. So I don't want to it's I have like a love-hate relationship with their sponsorship of it.
Yeah, which is expected.
Yeah. I also think it's like, like it's easy to villainize their sponsorship. But I feel like it's just also important to talk about the good that they do. But at the end of the day, it would be way better, right? An ideal world that we could just have the good without their sponsorship.
I would love to see a live graph comparing the rise in all of the companies that we mentioned, the rise of their profits with the rise in obesity in America.
Oh, it's probably astronomical.
Oh, they're probably step for step with each other.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, if in the end, like if we could just imagine if like we actually professed like eating whole foods, like actually eating healthy versus like making it acceptable and okay to include processed foods, like how different that would all look. I mean, that would be super fascinating.
It's not the thing that I would love to see is just, hey, if 60% of your diet is whole foods, you're going to be killing it.
Yeah.
That's really all it takes, and just get rid of liquid calories. So get rid of liquid calories, with the
Mm,
exception of maybe coffee. We can kind of concede there, maybe some alcohol, and just make sure that 60% of all the food that you eat looks like it came from a farm that you had in your backyard. It's fresh, it's colorful, and then you have that other 40% for whatever you want. Like I'm not shy about the fact that I eat some processed foods. Like I don't give a fuck. I For me, I love Nutella. I love Reese's peanut butter cups. Occasionally, I'll have fast food because sometimes I just don't feel like cooking. But like that's like 10% of my diet and stuff like that, And I
sorry.
no go. You can go ahead.
I was gonna say, but also too, you work out a lot. So like for you, eating these foods is like so less dangerous for you than someone who literally maybe on a good day gets 2,000 steps in
Yeah.
and then eats the same and then eats that too. Like, I mean, now being like now being at home now more, well, basically exclusively and not being able to work out and stuff like that. Like, there's like some days where I'm like, crap, I only walk 2,000 steps. Like that literally happens to me. Like today, let me tell you right now, okay? It is like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I went to the doctor's office, okay? So I have 3,000 steps so far, right?
Oof.
That's pathetic. And I've been fairly active today. I even like vacuumed the house a little bit, you know. So I today was a more active day for me. But you know, imagine all those people like they go from, you know, sitting in their car to sitting in their office to sitting on the couch when they get home to going back to bed. Like how many steps did they get in? For them, it's almost a different. You almost need different nutrition guidelines for them.
Yeah. It's good to see though that companies are starting to force their employees back into the office though.
Yeah, I think it's great for some people, and for other people, they really thrive being at home.
Depends what your job is, I guess.
Yeah, like my father-in-law, he hated going to the office, and he does better work at home. But I think most people they require that socialization that you know you just don't get from being at home.
Get a cat. You'll be plenty social.
Maybe a dog.
Yeah. So we actually were just playing with ChatGPT before we went live. We introduced this topic last time, but we didn't do this part of it. So we gave ChatGPT some prompts.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting.
So you want to take us through the first one?
Sure. So we just asked for it to make us an upper body and a lower body workout. Do you want me to like run through the exercises that it prompted us?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I'm gonna spare you the sets and reps. Just know it's like usually 3 sets between 10 and 15 reps. Okay. But it's push-ups, bent over rows, shoulder press, bicep curls, tricep dips, plank, and Russian twists. And then for your lower body, it is squats, lunges, deadlifts, leg press, calf raises, glute bridges, and a plank.
So what are your
What-
thoughts on that?
Oh my God, I was just gonna ask you.
Ah,
Honestly, it's not bad. It's not a bad workout. There are some things I dislike about it. Like I don't like tricep dips. Just don't. I'm not a really big fan of Russian twist, to be honest, but that's just me, my personal thing. I have my own little twist on how I like to do my Russian twists that are more effective. Um, the glute bridges, I would probably slide those up a little bit because I would probably do them more weighted than what I'm assuming it's programming for. But I mean, honestly, it's not bad. It's really not bad at all. Like it's a great foundation, I think.
why don't you like tricep dips?
I just don't think it's really great for your shoulder health.
Why not?
It puts such a strain on your rotator cuff. Like there's so many better ways to work out your tricep that it's like, you know, like why put yourself through that? I just think the cost benefit of it is just not great. I just think you should just go do tricep extensions or overhead tricep.
Yeah. Looking at the upper body one, I hate that push-ups are there.
Really? Why you hate push-ups?
So push-ups, pull-ups, tricep dips. Here's why. So let's say you are new to the gym, you download or you went to check out Chat GPT, you're like, fuck a trainer, I don't need one. This bad boy is gonna take care of me. And you are 6 feet, 200 pounds, or let's go 6 feet, 280 pounds. You want to lose about 50 pounds. When you do your push-up, your pull-up, or your tricep dip, you are at a body weight of 280, and that's a body weight exercise. As you start to get in shape, let's assume that you're eating, you're losing weight, you're actually providing less of a workload because your weight's changing. It becomes much harder to keep binary as far as like, okay, I'm just doing a chest press machine. I started at 10 pounds. Okay, now I'm up to 20 pounds. Now up to 30, so on and so forth. Your weight's actually changing, so it's not actually going to be the same way and the same stimulus the entire time. Sure, as you get lighter, you can do more of them, but it's much harder to track. Like, it's much harder to progress from an overload perspective, which is why a lot of that will depend on the goal. But when you look at this workout, especially for a beginner person, if you're overweight, you're not doing half these workouts, you're the half these exercises.
Oh no. Especially the lower body one. If you are overweight, this lower body section, like please find a trainer because you can really bust your knees.
Yeah. So think about it this way: you're deconditioned, you're overweight. It's time to do push-ups. I can tell you, I've done intro sessions for, I don't know, maybe 300 times, 400 times at this point. There's been like 4 people out of those 300 people that could do like 10 push-ups consecutively without dying.
Yeah. I find push-ups like a very foundational movement. Like it's like a I don't know, like a standard of physical ability in my opinion to be able to do push-ups correctly. But I get your point. Like form over what did they say? Form over quality or no form over quantity or
Form over function? No.
form over function. Yes. So
So yeah,
So I see your point with that. I mean, honestly, I think with all of these exercises, like your shoulder press, right? The rest of the upper body ones are fine. You can get away with that. Shoulder press, push-ups, tricep dips, you really got to know what you're doing so you don't like fuck yourself up. But with your lower body, I would say squats, lunges. I mean, both on quite frankly, all of them besides the calf raise and the plank, you really need someone to show you how to do them.
yeah. So going through the lower body one, right? So you got squats 3 sets, lunges 3 sets, deadlifts 3 sets, leg press 3 sets, calf raises, best exercise in the game. And then you got glute bridges. Unless you're a beast, that workout is going to exhaust you. So while it's actually not solid. I mean, excuse me, it's not bad. That's an exercise that this is going to be a workout that is going to give you junk volume, because if you're working at an appropriate weight and you're in your 10 to squat, so going through the lower body one, right? So your 3 sets of squats, right? Probably going to be back squats. That shit is tiring. And then you're going into lunges, right? So you're yet again using that same muscle group. Now you're going into deadlifts, which the first 10 to 20% of the deadlift movement is a squat. You are going to be exhausted, and then you're going to go into a leg press machine, which is another squat. Then you're going to do glute bridges when the first 4 exercises just work your glutes. So you're not going to get the ROI that you would expect from some of these exercises. So this kind of would work if you split it in half and did your knee dominant versus your hip dominant, but that would be my take on that. It's the risk factor of having too much junk volume. And if you're an example of junk volume is, let's say I can bench 135. I can bench 100 pounds 10 times, right? But I can bench 20 pounds like 50 times, right? Obviously, if I can do it 50 times, it's not really light enough to stimulate my muscle tissue or anything like that, right? So if I'm just make it going lightweight and all these high crazy reps, sure, it's going to be tiring. You're going to build up lactic acid, but it's not really going to stimulate your fibers the way that you want to, in a way that you're going to have to progress. And once you go through that and say you're exhausted, if you're exhausted, you're not going to be able to do the exercise at the perfect or with perfect execution for where your skill set's at and where you are, because you're exhausted. So you're not getting as much muscle recruitment in what you're trying to do, which is just going to hinder the overall process and stuff like that. So that'd be my take on kind of looking at this. But it's, for what it's spitting out, it's not too bad. Um,
Yeah, I don't feel the same way necessarily about the lower body workout, to be honest, or even about the volume of it. I feel like this is a great, like, like beginner level, as long as you kind of know the workout, the exercise, as long as you can correctly execute I feel like we should preface, as long as you can correctly execute these exercises, right? I don't think it's a terrible starting point. If you're new to working out in general, you are going to do more volume in the beginning anyway because you just don't have, you're not going to start off doing 135-pound squats when you're starting out. You'll probably start with maybe like just the bar or something like that, right? So I'm actually not too mad about it. I would probably add in some lateral movements to this. Maybe throw in like one more single leg exercise into it. I'd probably take out the calf raises personally, even though they're Anthony's favorite. But I think for if you had to like write a program for someone to go off to do on their own, I'm not too mad about it.
Yeah, I'm not too mad about it either. I think you could literally find these 2 workouts in, like, 80% of the trainers that you see on Instagram. You could find it in their stuff.
Honestly, I would even say you can find it in, even in any of the training manuals to become a
Yeah,
personal trainer. Like this is a very vanilla workout,
yeah.
which is fine, right? Like in terms of like how we are talking about simplicity and keeping things simple, like I'm not mad about it. But I think, we just asked for it to spit out like a generic program and it spit out a generic program.
So, when we look at the second one, I had Sandra prompt, "Make an upper body workout for someone who does not have shoulder flexion." So, that is someone who cannot shoot their arm straight up in the air. So, when you look at, like, a shoulder press overhead, right, does your arm go straight up, and does it not pull your torso out where you have this crazy arch in your back, which we obviously do not want. And it completely misses the cue, right?
Yeah.
Am
I'll
I
read
looking
it
at the right
off
one?
and
Hmm?
then I'll read it off real quick. So it's seated rows, chest press, lat pull downs, cable bicep curl, tricep extensions, seated rear deltoid fly, and then plank.
Yeah, so when you look at that one, right, so it just doesn't even touch any pressing in a vertical manner. I would like to see this, and I'm sure this will get better. I would like to see this evolve to the point where it says, okay, you can't do a vertical press, so your new vertical is at whatever degree shoulder flexion you have, and you just almost like an incline press as opposed to like sitting up vertical. So it becomes like an incline chest press. That's kind of what I was hoping that it would spit out. Um, but
Yeah.
it just kind of avoided it altogether. Sad
Yeah.
face.
I just think like that's just still like that might just have been too specific almost, right? Like this is the part where we still need personal trainers.
So you're saying we still have jobs?
That is what I'm implying here.
Let's
um,
go.
for fun, we also asked it to build a glute workout, which so it's basically barbell hip thrust, which I think is fantastic. Bulgarian split squats, I'm on board. Barbell squats, I'm not mad about it. I just personally barbell squats so late in the workout, I don't know. Deadlifts, yes. Glute kickbacks, love. Standing calf raises. I don't know how that's going to build your glutes, but maybe Anthony can tell us how. And then cable pull throughs. So it's all right. I'm not too mad about it.
Yeah, that one's not bad. I like for that one that it starts with hip thrusts.
Same. I probably just
It,
would have put in like goblet squats or something like that instead. And I just don't like I just don't like doing barbell squats that fatigued.
yeah, so that once again that raises brings up the junk volume again. Um, I if we're specifically targeting glute growth, right? My change would be I would keep the hip thrusts. Sure, that'd be a great starting point because and that exercise that's probably going to be the biggest load that you're going to be moving with that muscle group. Bulgarian split squats, if done properly and you can balance on one leg, that can definitely get you there. If you can, obviously, you can any variation of a lunge or a split squat is kind of is going to hit you there, right? Depending where you need to start. I wouldn't have the deadlift there. I would change that to an RDL. We've had this conversation before, right? Deadlifts, RDL, especially if we're looking for hypertrophy, right, in your glutes. You get a better range of motion on RDLs than you do on deadlifts, therefore making the RDL a more effective way, or like a good morning.
But an RDL is a deadlift. It's just type of deadlift.
But you can get into a deeper hinge.
Oh, I completely agree with you. By the way,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
RDL is a good one. I'm just arguing I'm arguing for the ChatGPT that
yeah,
RDL
yeah.
is a deadlift.
This is a 2-on-1 right here.
Yeah.
Um, I would argue keep the calves in there to help just for ankle stability, right? So if you're gonna want your glutes to do some things, you're gonna have to squat at some point, right? If you have phenomenal ankles, right, which attaches into your calves, so you work your calves, get that in good working order, you're gonna squat a lot better, which is the issue with 90% of people that you'll ever meet. As far as like how can we improve their squats? If you can improve their ankle mobility, if you can improve how strong their ankle actually is, you'll get a lot out of that, especially when you're dealing with athletic populations. Um, hmm,
I'm just not a big fan necessarily of calf raises for women in particular,
I know.
but that's just my take on it. I just
You
had to say that we can move on now.
you want to tell you do you want to tell a funny calf raise story?
Oh, you want me to share my story?
Uh,
Fine. Anthony challenged me to calf raises and couldn't walk for a week because I never do calf raises. And
there
it
was a
didn't help with my ankle mobility because I couldn't fucking walk.
that's not quite how it happened. I didn't challenge you to anything. There was this one time Sandra wanted to work out and she was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I was in the middle of a bulk. And this particular exercise day called for 7 sets of 15 single leg hip thrusts and 7 sets of calf raises. So we
Awful.
did 7 sets of calf raises, which uh, for me, my calves were fine. I mean, they definitely burned, but she was torched by that.
Yeah.
Uh,
My driveway is a steep incline, and let's just say that was torturous walking up my driveway.
I love it.
Yeah.
Funk
Anyway,
now,
moving on.
functional.
Then we asked for it to do a total body workout for fat loss. Super interesting, sort of. Jumping jacks, squat thrusts, kettlebell swings, push-ups, dumbbell lunges, mountain climbers, planks. Basically things to get the heart rate pumping. That's kind of my observation of this exercise. Um, I don't know, just
Yeah,
some cardio.
yeah. This looks like group fitness to me.
Yeah. Then we asked it to make to spot reduce belly fat because if you are a personal trainer or you're in the fitness industry, you have had someone ask you how to spot reduce their belly fat. Have you not?
I've been asked that question so many times.
It's nauseating.
So many times.
Yeah. Like, can you spot gain weight, please? Like, that's just like not how science works, okay?
Yeah.
So the answer was, I'm sorry, but it's not possible to spot reduce belly fat. When you lose weight, you lose it from your entire body, and where you lose fat first is determined by genetics and individual body composition. Therefore, a full body workout routine that includes both cardiovascular and strength training exercises, along with a healthy diet and lifestyle, is the best approach to reduce overall belly fat, including belly fat. To reduce overall body fat, including belly fat. I wish I could tattoo this somewhere and then
Yeah.
like just show people when they ask me this stupid question.
It'd be great if the Academy of Dietet. No, I'm kidding.
That's funny. I mean,
Yeah.
this should just be a poster in all gyms. It should be on billboards. Like, please let's educate the population.
Yeah. Yeah. They should be blasted everywhere. Obviously, you can't spot. It's gonna come off where it's gonna come off.
Yeah.
Right. You gotta make sure you're burning more calories. You burn more calories by building more muscle.
Yeah. I mean, end of story. Like,
Pretty much. Have a good protein intake. Drink water. Control your carbs. Right. Have them if you want to. Obviously,
amen.
I'm a big proponent of carbohydrates. I love carbohydrates. I name my podcast after carbohydrates. So carbohydrates should be in your diet every single day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gonna come off where it's gonna come off. So like my body, my personal body, the very, very last place for fat to come off me is my belly.
Quite frankly, for most people it is because your core holds all the important organs of your
Yeah,
body. Like you can live without an arm. It's really hard to live without your core.
I think I can do it. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I can make it happen. But yeah, no, all my life, so I was a chubbier kid growing up. I had arm definition even while I was 30% body fat.
Yeah. It's just,
True, true story. I was once over 30% body fat. It's probably
well,
closer to 35 around there.
I definitely was too. I just didn't know it. I didn't measure myself then. But be interesting actually to see what I'm at now post pregnancy. Oh, I got my clearance today. I can work out today.
Hell yeah.
I can work out today. I can work out again. So we will try things out again. Um,
So for those of you that are counting, it's February 16th. Sandra has already skipped leg day once.
yeah, I've skipped leg day like the past 6 weeks.
Doesn't count because you weren't cleared. Now you're cleared, but you didn't go. So you've technically just skipped leg day.
Oh, but it's Thursday, right? Today's Thursday. Yeah. Oh, darn it. I don't even have a gym membership right now, but I guess I could just do something at home. Oh well.
Squat with the baby.
Dude, I'm getting such a great shoulder workout with the baby. He loves what I call trampoline, which is like just bouncing him up and down. My shoulders are getting a workout in.
You heard it here first. Sandra's workout program for new mothers.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea actually. Yeah, as anyone who has children, the hardest part about having kids is that you can't just put them somewhere and go do things you need to do. You can't just drop them off some. Well, you could just drop them off somewhere, but
I think it's time. I think it's time to rope G into investing in a home gym.
honestly, like we have talked about it many, many a times. Like thinking about getting like a squat rack and all of that. Like we have talked about it, but I mean, you're looking at $2,000-3,000 minimum.
That's more than that.
Well, if you get like the squat rack, the barbell, and then plates, I mean, you're looking around that kind of price range.
But the benefit is when you film yourself, you won't have a creep staring at your butt.
Yeah, the neighbors across the street from us are a little creepy. I'm not gonna lie.
They're also avid listeners.
I don't. I doubt it. They just moved to the neighborhood, and it's just weird vibes. But we don't have to talk about it. If we lose a listener, then we know they do listen. We in the future we should do the same ChatGPT thing for like having it spit out different diets. I think that'd be like a fun thing to do too.
All right, we can do that.
Yeah, maybe not today, another time.
Yeah, that was kind of the gist of kind of what we wanted to talk about. Going through it, obviously, right? We just went through the workout programming with ChatGPT. It's actually not too bad, but there are definitely some words of caution in there, depending what your goals are. We talked about the academy, them being sketchy, which lines perfectly with everything else going on in the world right now. Yeah. So my word of the day, right? Don't try to bait people. Don't bait the creeps.
Totally.
Because most of the time, like from my personal opinion, most of the time, it's hard not to look at car accidents. I'm sorry. Like it is what it is.
Yeah. If too many people looking at you in the gym, you're either doing something really impressive or you're doing something really wrong.
Mm-hmm. and if you don't know the answer to that, it's the latter.
Yeah. Or your pants are see-through when you squat.
Does that happen a lot?
No, not really. It happens to some. I feel like when you first start working out as a female, that happens way more because you don't know what to wear yet. You got to figure it out,
True.
or you get new pants, which then it could happen too.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Makes sense. Love it.
Yeah.
All right.
Real.
So it has been fun. We're gonna log off here. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.